Okay, so good morning everybody. Thank you very much for joining this coffee morning event session. We're here this morning to talk about South Cambridgeshire District Council's funding for zero carbon grants. So I'm going to be introducing Emma shortly to do a presentation for you so she can explain fully about what this grant looks like and how village halls can benefit from this scheme. First of all, if we can just go around the screen and introduce everybody so we all know who everybody is and where everybody's from. So if I can, I'll use my screen to go round because we'll all be in different places on all of our screens. So if I can go to Emma first of all.
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm a project officer for South Cambs District Council.
Thank you. And Lorna?
I'm Lorna Pepper and I'm the Secretary of Little Gransden Village Hall, and we're thinking of applying for a grant to get cladding for one of the walls, well actually all the walls on our village hall.
Brilliant. Michael?
Yes, this morning I'm Chair of Horningsea Village Hall Trust and interested in how we can raise funds to improve required installation for the village hall pavilion.
Fantastic, thank you. Lizzie?
Hi, I'm Lizzie and I'm representing Ickleton Village Hall.
Thank you. And Tim?
Morning, Tim Jones, and I'm representing Cotman Community Centre.
Thank you. And John?
Morning. I'm representing Sawston Community Centre and also my wife, who's actually the chair.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, right, so let's move swiftly on. Emma, I'll hand over to you to do your presentation.
Yep, I'll just try and share my screen. Right, let's see if we can get to this. Bear with me. Right, can you see the, right, I'm going to, from the beginning. Right, can you see that at the moment? So I want to sort of check that everything.
No.
Okay, let's go back to Zoom again. Bear with me. So, right, let's go back to Zoom. Good. For some reason, right, so share. Can you see it now?
We can,
okay,
yeah.
So, if I just start that one, presenter view. Perfect. I'm just going to minimise that. Right, so you can all see it properly. Okay. Right. Thanks, Linda, and thanks for inviting me here today. As I've just said, my name's Emma Dyer. I work as a Climate and Environment Project Officer at South Cambs District Council, and I'm going to talk to you how you can apply for up to £15,000 of funding from the Council through round 2 of our recently launched Zero Carbon Communities grant. And like we said, if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask them at the end. The Zero Carbon Communities grant aims to support communities in South Cambridgeshire to take action on climate change and help us become a net zero carbon district before 2050. Some of you may have already been aware of our grant as it was launched last year, and you may have recently seen it being promoted again on social media. So round 2 of the grant was a real success. You've probably seen we received 42 applications, and we managed to fund 19 projects out of that. So that's pretty great success, really. The grant allowed for a broad range of projects to be considered, with applications being received from a variety of organisations, including parish councils, village hall committees, and local green groups. And one of our successful applicants from Ickleton Village Hall, Lizzie, will speak in a minute to tell you how they use their grant funding and what it has meant to them. So following on from last year, we wanted to build on the success we had already achieved. We wanted to share our thinking and listen to our members' comments and suggestions. We wanted to take into consideration feedback from last year's applicants. We also wanted to make the application process a little bit easier. I think last year there were quite a few questions and it got a bit laborious, so we thought we'd just make it a little bit easier. We also wanted to be able to procure services and possible bulk discounts. This year we've decided to break the grant down into 3 streams. Those 3 streams are cycling, community buildings, and tree planting and other nature-based solutions. These 3 streams were the most popular with our applicants last year. This theme, so the first one is the community buildings option theme. This theme is about improving the energy performance in your village hall. Apart from the objective of reduced use of fossil fuel, we want you to use your project to raise awareness in your community about improvements which can be made to like homes and other buildings and so on. So basically it's sort of, you know, leading by example. And on the application form, we'll ask you about your plans to do this, for example, by holding an open event or providing an article for your local newsletter. You can apply in relation to any building which is open to the whole community, which in your cases it would be. You should have a freehold or leasehold interest in the hall in place. If there is a lease in place, there must be at least 21 years left to run on the lease. That's that bit. And in this stream, you can apply for funding of an energy saving or energy efficiency measure. For example, insulation of walls, like you've already mentioned, ceilings or floors, replacement doors or windows, or energy efficiency measures such as lighting upgrades. Please note that we won't be able to fund heat pumps because they are supported by the government's renewable heat incentive scheme, and if you were to be funded through our scheme, you wouldn't be eligible for that, for the government payments. Also, we won't fund oil or gas boilers. This is because we want to avoid investing in fossil fuel systems, even if they are more efficient ones than the ones you are replacing. We encourage you to get a proper energy survey done to identify the best approach to improving the energy performance in your village hall, and then apply to us for the measures recommended in the survey. If required, we can provide you with the names of local organisations that we are aware of who offer this service. If this is another section, if you are not sure what improvements are needed in your village hall, instead you can apply for an energy efficiency survey. I think you call them, is it DECs, I think perhaps, for the village halls if they're over a certain size, through our scheme. Note that we will procure this for you, and so you won't be applying for funding, you'll be actually applying for a survey, and that's all set out in the actual application form if you sort of just follow it step by step. And this will come as a package with support and advice. If you apply for a survey through the scheme, you will unfortunately have to wait until next year to apply for funding for the actual improvements identified through the survey, or fund these through alternative means. The final option is solar PV. If this is of interest to you, you need to get a quote, and you can get an indicative price online for purposes of the application form. Now, this is the bit of news I wanted to share. On the 1st of September, we will be launching, in partnership with the County Council, a new group buying scheme for solar panels called Solar Together Cambridgeshire. Registration for this scheme opens on the 1st of September 2020. On the 6th of October, a reverse auction will take place where pre-vetted installers will compete to provide the most competitive price for high quality panels. From the 26th of October, registrants will receive a personal recommendation, and they will have until the 7th of December to make a decision. Solar panels got through the scheme will be high quality and likely to be significantly cheaper than the typical market prices. If you apply for a grant for solar PV, then we would like you to register for this group buying scheme, Solar Together Cambridgeshire. You won't unfortunately be able to get a quote from them by the deadline for the grant scheme, so we would like you to use a quote from another company so that we have an indicative price for the cost of the works. If you then are successful with our grant, we would then fund your panels through Solar Together Cambridgeshire. This will secure better value and be able to spread the funding more widely. You might also want to consider applying for funding for a battery storage system for solar PV. The group buying scheme Solar Together Cambridgeshire will also supply these. The next one is the tree planting and other nature-based solutions. Last year, we funded 4 out of the 5 applications we received for tree planting. We wanted a tree planting theme to be a theme again, and this year it is a great opportunity to involve communities, no matter how small they are. We have therefore included an awareness of trees as an objective, along with a reduction of CO2 in the atmosphere. Habitat creation restoration has been added in too, as we see this as an important added benefit. We are keeping this stream quite broad, as we appreciate demographics and volunteer numbers can vary considerably. We would like funded projects to be sustained in the long term and have included privately owned land, so long as applicants can show the trees can be enjoyed by the community and they will be preserved in the future. We also recognise that tree planting can sometimes cause more damage than good, so we have included an option to fund a tree consultant, and those projects which have already sought advice from a tree consultant will be looked upon favourably. So some examples to consider will be planting of one landmark tree, planting of a small tree population, a community orchard project, community tree nursery project, a hedge project, or a larger village-wide tree canopy project. I know this might, I don't know how much land actually is, you know, you have at village halls, but, you know, obviously, you know, you can sort of tailor that to how it would suit you, but it's another example to consider. And what I wanted to make you aware of, that there are other organisations that provide grants for trees. For example, the Tree Council Tree Futures Grant Scheme, which is a fund to get young people under the age of 16 involved in tree planting and care. Also, the Woodland Trust provide free trees for schools and communities. So anything that, if you were to get funding from elsewhere as well, perhaps it could be part funded or whatever, but we look along those kind of applications quite favourably because obviously it's part funding, so it would go in your favour. I'm just going to go back to the trees. Sorry, just bear with me a minute. Just trying to find them. For some reason, I'm going to go back to the cycling streams because I can't find those at the moment. They don't seem to be appearing on my presentation. So if you just bear with me a minute. Can't find those ones. Bear with me. Community building, solar scale tree planting. Where's that gone? Yeah, it's not gone through there. I'll come back to the tree one in a minute. Sorry, the cycling one in a minute. So the next bit would be how to apply and what happens next. The actual application process. So the key information I would like to bring to your attention is that the total grant available is £100,000. The minimum and maximum grant is for £1,000 to £15,000 that you could apply for. The application deadline is 5 PM on Wednesday the 30th of September, and the results will be at the end of the year. And who can apply? As already said, you have to be a non-profit organisation, so your village hall would qualify. You would need to be based in South Cambridgeshire or outside and provide benefit to South Cambridgeshire residents. And you can apply via our web link, which is on the screen at the moment. These slides will be available if you want to obviously have a copy of those as well. They're on our webpage at South Cambs as well, so you can refer to those later as well if you want to go back and have a look. And the actual application process, you can choose a project from the menu or devise your own project to meet the objectives. Applicants are welcome to apply for more than one project, although it should be noted that the allocation of funding will take into account the aim of achieving a good spread of funding across the district. And the scoring side of things is obviously an important one. You'll be asked to describe your project and show how it meets the objectives on the application form and to what extent it provides additional value. Where appropriate, we would encourage you to seek part funding from other sources, including your parish council, especially if it is one of the larger parish councils. This is particularly relevant where the application is for project funding as opposed to for items, services, for example, the cargo bike, community building survey or electric share bike scheme. Your parish council may have a local fund available for small projects or monies from building developments, which is Section 106 funding, that can be used for your project. There is no requirement for part funding, but if, as expected, the fund is oversubscribed, proposals, including funding from other sources, will be prioritised. Part funding can include your own fundraising and can be of monetary and or in-kind value. Applicants seeking less than £1,000, so if you've got like a small little project that you want to do, we would encourage you to apply for our community chest, which funding. So basically, if the project involves improvements to community buildings, there's group startup costs or the purchase of equipment or materials, they can fund that. Support and guidance. Further information will be on our webpage, including frequently asked questions and a useful link section. And if you just please email us at zcc@scams.gov.uk if you have any questions or would like to discuss your proposal with us. So we're quite keen to sort of, if you're not sure about what you want to actually apply for or how to go about it, we could have a sort of one-to-one session with you, so you could sort of just run through it with us and we could give you some advice as to, you know, who to contact and whatnot. So I'm just going to go back and just run through, if you just bear with me, I'm just going to end this and go through the actual trees stream, which doesn't seem to have appeared on my, actually appeared on my presentation. So if you just bear with me for 2 seconds, I'm just going to bring up my, here we go. Cycling, yeah, so the cycling screen, sorry, that didn't come up in the actual presentation for some reason. So cycling, yeah, sorry.
To stop this screen share, have you got an alternative screen share, or?
I can get, yeah, if you bear with me, I've got my notes that I was just going to read out, but I can see if I can.
Notes, but I don't know if you want to stop the screen share, because.
Yeah, let me see if, I've gone to Zoom. So we have to bear with me with Zoom, I'm not the best. Just for some reason, Zoom's not letting me.
I can do it for you if you like.
Oh, stop share. No, it's done it. It's done it. Yeah. There we go. Right. Okay. So cycling. This is one of the other streams that I wanted to mention. And last year it was the most popular option with 8 successfully funded projects, and they covered a broad range from cycle racks, cycle repair cafes, to e-bike share schemes, and an app to make it easier to apply for infrastructure changes. And we believe it's a great time to be launching a cycling stream, particularly for returning to work after COVID-19, and also as the 12 new greenways are planned. We appreciate the needs of villages can vary due to differing demographics, and we have made it easier to compare bike projects by allowing us to ask specific questions with the objectives of 1, reducing the miles travelled in private vehicles, 2, increasing the take-up of cycling by people who would not otherwise cycle. So there's a number of different ways we can approach this stream. We've decided to include 4 categories within the cycling stream. So the first one would be this improvement to cycling infrastructure. And in this category, applicants could bring forward a cycle lane or a cycleway, or they could install cycle stands or make some other improvement which promotes cycling. And it's important that we know who owns the land and what value it brings to the community. So we're quite, we're believers that a small change could make a big difference, which is what we're looking for in terms of value for money. Our next option would be for an electric bike or an electric cargo trike. And it was evident last year that electric bikes and trikes were considered valuable assets in the villages in our district. So we thought that this year we could offer applicants the chance to own their own e-bike for use in the local share scheme managed by themselves. So by using our procurement power, again, we could hopefully get better value for money with bulk buys. Applicants will be given the opportunity to tell us how they propose to manage their scheme and how they intend to insure the bikes, which I know has caused issues in the past. As we funded e-bike share schemes last year, we can draw on their expertise and offer advice if needed. It might be that users would have to pay to help cover these costs. And the third option is to kickstart a commercial electric share bike scheme in your area. So by using a commercial operator, applicants can also run an e-bike share scheme without the worry of taking on the booking, the maintenance, replacement of any bikes with punctures or mechanical faults. And again, insurance, a dedicated helpline and battery recharging will be provided by the operator. So it sort of takes all the hassle away from it all. All that is needed is a suitably clearly marked out location for the bikes to be stationed. The applicant would need to cover any costs for this side of things themselves. So as long as you've got sort of some kind of area at your village hall or wherever in the village, you could, as long as it's clearly marked out, that would be fine. The bonus here is the bike lockers are not needed. So this is really great because they've got tracking devices attached to each bike, and it means that at any time that the bikes can be sort of, you can find out, or the company that we use could find out exactly where they are. So that's really, really great. And it obviously saves having to provide bike lockers, which come with their own price. So we will fund 4 bikes per application. And this would give the opportunity for families and friends to cycle together. It also means that bikes are more likely to be available to hire. Users would need to pay a small rental fee, probably only about £4.50 for 12 hours, and that would be through a mobile phone app or a prepaid smart card. Again, we will procure the services of a commercial operator and provide a 50% subsidy to the commercial operator for the first year to kickstart the scheme. Typically, 4 e-bikes will be based in each village, which would cost around £2,400 for a year's subsidy. And yeah, so that's basically the bikes sort of streams. So yeah, so if you've got any questions, feel free, before I pass over to Lizzie with her little talk from Ickleton Village Hall, if you've got any sort of questions you'd like to ask, feel free to ask. Any questions?
I think you must have. Oh, Lorna.
Oh, you need to unmute.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Emma. My question is about the energy survey.
Yes.
Does this have to be a formal survey? We've got a member of our committee has done all sorts of work on the energy requirements. Do you know Trevor Brown?
Little Granston, yes, I've been emailing him actually, because he's now retired, hasn't he? Is that right?
Yes.
So he's done a lot of improvements to your village hall, hasn't he?
Yes, we've already done we've got the solar panels, etc., and the windows. We're looking at cladding a wall. I know that he's done all sorts of research, and he's done he's got, is it infrared photography of the walls to show where the heat's coming out? Would something like that be all right, or have we got to go through the survey? We've
not sort of made it really formal and saying you have to do this. What we're saying is that if you have professional advice, it would go in your favour, because obviously, you know, we're sort of satisfied that, you know, you've got a professional involved. But bearing in mind, as long as you can justify and you can say we've done this, we've used this, you know, I would still put the application in, and I would say that would be absolutely fine. Have you got a sort of do you call it a DEC, don't you? Is it the display energy? Well, like your EPC for your house. Do you have one of your village anyway?
I would have thought so, because we've got the solar panel and the kilowatt hours coming up and everything. So
you should have one of those anyway. So it'd be worth investigating and having a look and see. Obviously, tell us what that is when it comes up on that.
Yeah.
But again, all your research, you know, Trevor's research, you know, by all means, put it on the application form. And if we want further information after the deadline, we can always come back to you. So don't let that put you off.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask a question? I'm particularly interested in the hedges and trees.
Yeah.
What sort of information would you need for that, and what sort of level of funding? Because planting a hedge can be quite onerous given its length and size.
Yeah. So is this actually on your land that you own?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Right. So as long as, you know, I mean, in what sort of kind of advice would you sort of want to go with that? Is it a sort of tree consultant? I mean, because you could actually fund the work of the tree consultant in the application, or do you sort of have you spoken to your tree network, your tree warden network, because they might be the sort of first people that could offer you some really good advice onto what sort of tree and how big it is. Are you talking about how it could affect local other people's land and whatnot, and
roots and the sort of thing, the issues that one gets with such things?
Yeah, I mean, you could, you know, obviously get that tree consultant to come out, or you could use our funding to pay for that tree consultant and then apply again next year for the actual funding or whatnot, or, you know, then, or maybe even if you wanted to pay for the trees yourself, but use the funding for the actual tree consultant. But in the first instance, I would probably go onto the tree wardens network. It's something that is the volunteers that basically have a good, you know, knowledge of trees and tree planting and hedges and whatnot. Speak to them because they could advise, you know, the right sort of species and whatnot, you know, what perhaps, you know, have less you know, problems with roots and whatnot. So and I can provide you with that information. It's actually on our web, South Cam's website, so I can provide that to Lisa to hand over to you if you wanted in the first instance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's very useful. And there is a supplementary question. The roof has very limited insulation. Again,
right.
Could we, rather than waste time, because time is obviously expensive as well, given the fact that a lot of heat's disappearing, if we get a private survey, then can we use that in the application, saying that this will save us so much by insulating it, and this is what we'll need to do?
Yeah, so if you pay for that private survey and then tell us, we know that you've had a professional looking at it, so you can apply for the actual funding for that installation, so that's absolutely fine. Yeah.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Another question, if I may, Emma, on that theme. John's obviously thinking similar to what we're thinking in Horningsea. I was going to say, with regard to the survey, the lead time, I mean, clearly we've got to get everything done by the 30th of September.
Yeah.
Are we likely to get moving quicker by calling upon your people to do the survey? Are they your people, or are they just a company that you bring in? Is the lead time short, or is it being experienced as being long at the moment?
Well, to do the actual, so basically if you wanted to apply for the actual energy survey through us, so we would pay for that, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
How long is that?
Is that no, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, so yeah, that's fine. We're in the process at the moment of procuring a person to do that survey, the best sort of person to do it. So it's out at procurement at the moment, so it will be announced soon, actually, I think. So and we've got a couple of people that are actually showing interest already, so it will be fine, hopefully. If you are successful, so if you apply for the funding for the survey, obviously the applications are in by the 30th of September. So we've got to obviously do all our kind of assessments of all the applications. So we're going to give ourselves a couple of months, because it's got to go to our members as well, because the members have the final say in who gets what funding and what not. So we're saying by the end of the year, basically, that we will know who we're going to fund and who we're going to provide surveys to. So by that point, we would have procured somebody to provide this service. So once we've got that, I'm hoping that at the beginning of next year, at least, it should be ready to go. Is that something that is a little bit too long and far in the distance for you, or are you sort of wanting it a bit sooner?
Well, clearly, we wouldn't be starting this exercise unless we felt that there were good grounds for providing insulation and improving the heat loss. But what I'm thinking, we don't want to spend time up to, say, December just to know whether we've got the survey, when the fund might be exhausted, and by the time we actually know what it's going to cost to carry out the installation work. So I think as far as Lorna was saying, you know, that they've got people there, they know pretty well what they want. Might the best thing be to us to fund our own survey, even with the people that you are thinking of recommending?
Because that's the second option. Yeah, there's two options basically. So we can either fund the survey, or we can fund the actual improvements. So we can do either. So if you wanted to get your own survey, that's absolutely fine, like you were saying, and then apply to us, basically stating this is what the survey that we've had done, this is the improvement that needs doing, and then you apply to us the actual physical, you know, the improvements, which is again your loft, your insulation that you wanted in your roof, wasn't it? So that in your instance probably would be the best bet. I mean, obviously we're still going into the sort of like November, December time until the decisions are made. So once that's all done and, you know, we provide the money, it will be sort of, you know, it will be sort of January, February time, I suppose, or the end of the year. So we're still in winter time, but
it's getting short.
It's getting short, but unfortunately there's nothing we can do, unfortunately, because it just takes a while for these things to get assessed. Because like I said, last year we had 42 applicants, and to obviously make sure that we do a fair assessment of everybody, it takes time, and we can't rush it, unfortunately.
It's beginning to look obvious that what we need to do make sure that we've not only had a survey, but we've also got an estimate of cost before the 30th of September. Otherwise, there's no chance we're going to get anything done until January.
Yeah, I saw it.
Or after January. I mean, that's the earliest we could probably commission someone to do the work, would be start of next year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Emma, is there a time limit in terms of when you have to spend the money by?
So all of our grants, basically, you have to have done it within a year. So it's a year. So once the funding is provided, you have a year. But you know, if you have an exceptional circumstance and you needed to extend it, that's absolutely fine, as long as you sort of contact us and say, look, you know, the project's, you know, we can't get it done in this time, you know, can we have a couple of months extension? That's absolutely fine too, but as long as we're aware of that. So but we're saying a year for the purposes of this, just so you know. So you have got a long, so exactly. So if you wanted to, you know, there's no pressure, but it's just the way that the grant is this year, is just the timings, we can't do it all, unfortunately.
Emma, could you just confirm the closing date for applications, please?
30th of September.
It's the 30th. I wrote down the 5th for some reason. I thought, my God, we're in this.
Oh, you're right. Okay, you've got a bit more time.
30th.
So we did open the grants at the beginning of July, actually. So I was going to ask, did the communication get through to you okay? Because we did quite a lot of promotion on sort of Facebook, and obviously the council itself, we did a lot of you know, did you manage, I mean, how did it come through to you? Did you get an email or anything? I'm just wanting to know how.
Well, in our case, the first I knew about this was the end of July,
okay.
And it came through our local district councillor, Claire Daunton.
Claire Daunton, yeah. No, it's interesting because obviously we want to make improvements to make sure that word gets out sooner, because obviously if you'd had a little bit more time, it would have obviously helped you in that circumstance. And I don't know if ACRE have some kind of means that, have you got, I don't know, how do you sort of communicate things out?
We communicate with Village Hall Network on a regular basis. So we've got a blog that we can put stuff on. We've got, I do MailChimp letters round to the network. And obviously we have coffee mornings like this. So we can always use this kind of function to help you promote stuff and get directly to the network.
So the MailChimp, because I think, had you sent it out before? I can't remember now, because I know I had emailed you, but I didn't know if it had gone out. Did I send it to you? I can't remember. I know that we had...
I'd have to look back, Emma, to see if...
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm just making a note of this for future reference, because as soon as it is, it would be really, really good.
Lorna, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say that we heard about it from Lisa's circulated newsletter.
Oh, there we go.
You did, yeah. I'm sure I emailed you, yeah. And I was supposed to make sure that word had got out, obviously, because we did, obviously, with our parish councils and the district councillors, you know, it's quite easy to get the word out. But for a lot of other sort of community groups, because I was trying to work out, because obviously things like scout groups and things like that, a lot of non-profit organisations, how can I get there? So I was trawling through all the government charity data for South Cambridgeshire, and I was trying to go through an email, so it's quite a laborious task actually trying to sort of do that. But we have got I think there's a scout group that's actually applied this year, I think. So I'm hoping at least if we can reach out to as many people as we can, that would be really beneficial for next year. But that's great.
May I just say, if you want to contact Scouts and Guides, there is a district officer. And you could simply go to that. I'll get Sue to communicate it to you.
Oh, please do. That would be really, really
yes,
useful.
And that will remain in place basically forever. So
really? So it doesn't change?
I think the communication is fairly fixed in a way to find the person who's actually doing the job at the time.
And would that apply to the guides and the brownies and things?
Yes, effectively, yes. There's sort of overall organisations, and you can do all kinds of things. I would suggest she talks to you about it.
Yeah, no, that would be really, really useful actually.
And the other thing I just wanted to clarify with the grant, because obviously getting a move on, because we would look perhaps for quite a substantial amount of money, given the situation we've got with our roof. It's obviously better to get a survey done by somebody professional and then back it up with a couple of quotes so you can see how much is involved. But we can't, I presume you can't accept a quotation for the work. you have to have a professional recommending it before you actually go forward to having the quotations. So we'd have to get a survey done rather than an organisation who specialises in dealing with it. Although it's fairly obvious if you haven't got any insulation, you do need some.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, you need to get that sort of professional if you can, and if you haven't, just provide that quote. And I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, the applications are in on the 30th of September. If we need any more information, we can come back to you. It's not going to go against you in any way. It's just that's our deadline. And again, this is a new way that we're doing it this year. So we have to appreciate that, not everything is going to run, totally straightforward. There might be a few hiccups along the way, and we might have learnt, oh, actually, we should include this in the application form next year or whatever. But it's definitely, sort of a bit of a learning process for us. But I think hopefully we've got it sort of as we want it. So hopefully it shouldn't be too difficult. But yeah.
Emma, I'm sorry to harbour this particular point, but it's obviously the time is short if we're going to move to get something done in the way of insulation before the winter's finished.
Yeah, and also it's a popular time, isn't it, for people to get stuff put in.
But what I was really going to say was, you say that you're just about ready to appoint certain people within the council to do this survey work.
Well, it's not within the council. We're going to procure we put it out to procurement, so we're going to provide, we will.
No, so in actual fact, do we have to go through the whole application to be able to get a survey done by your people, or could you soon inform us who these people would be and we could contact them?
So we have a list of people that we are aware of. We're unable to recommend people, unfortunately, but we've got a list of people that we can give you. But what I'm saying is, we can't say, oh, I would recommend this person, because obviously,
Is that list available, or can it be available soon?
Yeah, I've got that now, so I can give that to you if you want.
Okay,
I can provide that to Lisa. Yeah,
we'd appreciate that. And also, Lorna's pointing a finger. Oh, we're all pointing a finger. So these people are going to get a mad rush.
Oh, and I meant to say, obviously, for tree consultants as well, we've got a list of people, John, that we're aware of as well. That if you wanted to have somebody from, obviously, if you weren't going to go through your the tree warden network, there's also a list of people that we're aware of. So I'll give you that as well.
Yeah, so if you also give me the contact for the tree warden network, that would be very helpful.
I will do.
Emma should be able to provide all of that information to me, won't you, Emma? And then what I can do is I can send that information out to all of you after this session.
Brilliant.
Make it available with the recording when that goes out to all South Cambs halls.
Lisa, as usual, fantastic.
Okay. Have you stopped recording now, or?
Oh no, she's still going.
No, I'm afraid you're still being recorded.
In that case, could I, on a different subject, to go back to the cycling?
Yeah.
I didn't want to be pushing things backwards and forwards from one subject to the next, but on the cycling side, you raced through with tremendous efficiency the schemes that were going to be open, and I've written down a few things like 2,400 a year for 4 bikes and things like that. Is there documentation available that will concisely explain the attractions of this and what it offers? I'm thinking of our residents association in the village. They probably would jump at this, because there's an awful lot of people that would dearly love to cycle from 3 miles in from Horningsea to Cambridge that can't possibly afford a couple of £1,000 for an electric bike, and families particularly. So is there something that is readily available just on cycling, which a sort of handout, which I could give to the Residents Association?
What I would suggest is, we're aware of a couple of companies, commercial services, that provide this in South Cambridgeshire, and they're the experts in this. One of the ones that is going to probably bid for our procurement service for this electric bike scheme, they know it inside out. And what I will do is I'll provide you with the information for the couple of those companies, so they can run. You can speak to him, and he's the expert in his field or whatever, and he can tell you exactly what you would need and how it would work in more depth.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Well, it is. I think we've got to find someone that's prepared to actually run it and make sure it's run efficiently, and bikes.
Yeah, it's quite a bespoke thing. It's quite a new thing that's sort of up and coming, and I'm aware of two companies in Cambridgeshire, that do provide this. So again, if I give you those details, you can speak to them. And
in fact, isn't there talk now about the city running a scheme within the city as well, on a similar basis, where people can just use an electric bike?
There's a few schemes actually that sort of run. I can't remember the name of the one that they use, but this one's really good because it's got this sort of tracking device thing. So it's all kind of, I think it's a Dutch. It's all coming from Holland or wherever, but it's a kind of because obviously cycling's really big out there. But the sort of idea of it is pretty good.
Well, the other thing is it's good because it's catering for a village.
Yeah.
In other words, you leave a village, you go to Cambridge, you do what you want, or you go on a cycle ride wherever in the country, Little Granston even, it's lovely.
Yeah.
And you come back to a base in your village, whereas the schemes they're running in town probably will mean that they're more adaptable or more useful for people living in town.
I think particularly the villages that live you're sort of close to Cambridge, it's very, very good, isn't it? Because obviously parking and whatnot and pollution is so close. You're so close, but it'd be ideal for those sort of villages that are there.
Lots of energetic people, John, in Sawston, aren't there? They can go.
Indeed. Well, I was thinking it's funding for 1 year, and that's really a potential issue. Because we've
after that, you could speak to the commercial operator, and then you could come up with something with them if you wanted to continue it. But I think what it is, it's quite a good sort of 1 year trial to see how the take up is in your village, because you don't know exactly. I mean, last year we had quite a few applicants actually for electric bike schemes. So it's obviously a really popular thing that people are actually thinking of, which is really, really good. So yeah, I just, and like I said, you can apply for more than you don't have, you can apply for more than once from a village hall. If you have two ideas, you can apply for two grant applications. But when we come to assess, depending on the number of applications that we do receive, it all depends on the distribution within the and the needs of the rest of the applicants, and where they're based, and have they been funded before, and whatnot. There's various things that we're going to sort of judge it by, but if you have a good scheme, by all means please do submit that as well.
Yes, well, we've got a suitable charity in the village who would probably be very interested in it, and I was going to pass the information to them.
Oh, please do. Yeah, that's great. Likewise, if anybody else has got any know of anybody that could apply, please forward the information on to them. That'd be really, really good.
Thanks, Sam. Can we hand over to Lizzie? So Lizzie can do, if you can just explain to us, Lizzie, about what happened when you put your application in last year, what the process was like, and what you managed to achieve through this funding scheme. It'll be really great to hear a live example of how it happens.
Okay, all right. Firstly, last year when we decided to apply for a grant, firstly, I totally sympathise with the fact that you think time is running away with you, because we were originally thinking that we would look at going for solar panels on the roof, and it soon became apparent that it was going to be far too complicated in the time frame. So in the end, we had an old energy survey from a few years ago, and we read through it. Most of things were not achievable, but the lighting was something that we felt we could do. So actually we applied for a grant to get all the lighting replaced with low energy bulbs, and we've got, if I just tell you a bit about the hall, we've got a large sports hall with changing rooms, toilets, a meeting room, kitchen. So there was an awful lot of lighting, and we felt if we could reduce our energy consumption by doing that, that would be a useful way of saving energy. We were lucky enough to get the grant, obviously, and we were planning, originally we were thinking we would have to shut the hall for 2 weeks, but as it's turned out with the virus, the work was able to take place, so actually we've not inconvenienced anybody. So in terms of finding out how it's doing, we have no idea because the hall's been shut. So it's a great shame, but we are ready to go as and when we can reopen. I would say I hate filling in forms. So I came to this process with dread, but the good news is that once you start filling in the form, to save it is really, really simple. They just send you a code. That code remains the same throughout the process, so you can keep coming back to it. So that's absolutely fine. Uploading documents was not instinctive, but I got there in the end. Just keep going. It is worth doing. One thing I found last year when I applied, I started writing the application actually in the boxes on the form. I would recommend you don't do that because the boxes are very small and you can't actually then read what you're doing. So I would write it on your computer, and then it's very easy to copy and paste when you're happy. I think the thing I find very useful was to read the guidance and see what information you're going to need to provide, and just write that down separately, and then go and get all your permissions and ask your supporters like your parish councillors and your district councillors and all those sorts of, start that process now so that you've got all that ready to go. I think we had 2 or 3 quotes, and we asked them, the people supplying the quotes, to give us an idea of the amount of energy we would save at the time when they gave us the quote. Nobody's looking at doing this type of thing, so it's not really relevant. But we had things like motion sensors fitted, so that when someone's been into the toilets and then leaves it and doesn't turn the light off, it goes off. So we tried to be a bit creative as to how we could save money. Did any of you apply for a grant last year? No, okay. So maybe it's easiest for you to ask if there are any questions that you have, because it's difficult to know how to help, really.
Lizzie, they were really practical examples. I think you've helped without realising you've helped, actually. That was great, thank you.
And I've made a note of your comments as well, so that's really great. We can put it back to our comms team on that, so that's really good.
Lovely, thank you. Oh, there is one more thing, actually, well, if I can feedback this. Obviously, I did the application, and then we found out through the parish council that we had got the grant, which was a bit weird because it was nothing to do with them. So maybe don't know about that, but anyway.
So as soon as we have the decision is made, the decision notice goes up and it goes on to our webpage, so it's like everybody can access who's been funded. So it might be that the email didn't get sent out, but it was actually published before then. So that's another thing I will make a note. Yeah. I think it's because we wanted to write the decision notice and the email in the correct format to make sure that the funding agreements and the way it was worded was correct, but that's something I'll make a note.
Well, it does seem a good idea if there are applications from ACRE people that you notify ACRE, and they can also help make sure everybody's aware of it.
Yeah.
A question for Lizzie. Lizzie, I'm going to put my glasses on. Sorry, Lizzie. Yes, you mentioned that you got to know about the success of your application through the parish council, strangely enough. As a matter of interest, did your application involve the parish council at all? Did they put a contribution in for your successful application?
No, they supported it, but they didn't put any finance.
They didn't support it financially? No,
they didn't, no. But because they were quite keen for us to go down the solar panel route, and it was just going to take too long and be too complicated. There were so many questions that we needed to be sure that we'd got right, such as battery storage and all that sort of thing. So we're still looking at that, but it's a really long-term project.
Lizzie, we're absent-minded and getting old, but just remind me, which is your village again?
Eccleton.
Eccleton.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think it's really important if you belong to a large parish, you know, that there is money available from the parish councils a lot of the time. So it's definitely worth approaching your parish council, because, you know, that it could be part funded by them. So, you know, it's worth contacting them.
And Emma, from your point of view, you'll probably feel happier if you had got contribution coming in from other than your only SCDC source.
Yeah, so when it comes to scoring, part-funded applications will be looked upon favourably. So, you know, you'd probably get a few bonus points for that. So it's worth considering and looking. If you wanted, I know that Lisa had mentioned this as well, obviously different type of funding streams. I mean, there is so much stuff out there, but I would, in the first instance, I'd come onto our grant grabber. If you look at Grant Grabber on our South Cambs webpage, it gives, you can put in all your criteria and you can search for a lot of the funding that is available for a specific project. So you can go onto that. You can, there's Cambridge Community Foundation as well, which provide a lot of, you're probably aware of these as well, but it's worth having a look and contacting them as well to see what's available.
Brilliant, thank you. Have we exhausted all the questions, or are there any issues left? I think everybody's probably happy now, aren't they? Okay, so can I thank Lizzie very much for doing your case study of your experience last year. That was really useful. And thank you so much, Emma, for taking the time to give us the presentation and also explain the funding streams that there are available at the moment. And we look forward to seeing some of these coming through and what opportunities there'll be. So that's quite exciting. Okay, so thank you very much for participating today. And that's the end of our session. Thank you.